Hear you,
This
Jason.
conference will now be
Okay.
recorded.
Sorry.
All right. So I got an email about 5 days ago, and this has to do with support and everything, the knowledge base, all of it, everything. That Freshdesk is who we use, was going to kick us out of their system because of a violation of some of the policies, but it wasn't us. We didn't do anything wrong. They had somebody working for them that signed us up, and he did it the wrong way or illegally, or I don't know, against their policy. So they fired the guy or whatever, but they're kicking us off. And I'm trying to wrap my head around that, and I've already emailed the people back, but he says, yes, I'm sorry, it doesn't make sense to you, but that's what has to happen, and I don't know why. So what they're saying is in the next 40 days or so, they could just take our support system and just can it and turn it off, and it's gone.
Jesus.
You talking about your ticket system and everything?
Yes, I'm talking about Freshdesk, Fresh Service, the
Oh.
big, huge conglomerate that is supposedly one of the industry standards in this kind of system. Um,
Uh,
yeah, why can't we create a new user? I mean, I don't care. They've been taking my money for 2 years, and they didn't care about it until now. They're getting the money, not that guy. I don't see, no data was released. They didn't get any of our records, so it's not any of that kind of thing. And we're trying to get to the bottom of that. But in the meantime, I'm scrambling to get Zoho Desk migrated, get our data migrated in it. So if they do pull it down, I'll have a backup system. But if all this
Crazy.
happens, it's not going to be a quick and painless transition. So there may be some hurdles. So you guys that know how stuff works, if you see any chatter in the groups about what happened to the service system, that's what happened. I don't know if it's going to happen. We might be able to iron it out and stay on Fresh, or move on to China's Freshdesk site and just set ours up on a separate domain. I don't know. We're trying to work through that now. I just got confirmation that this wasn't a scam email like this morning. It just hit me like this is for real. So that's what I've been working on today. And this relates to these, I've been kicked out of YouTube.
Who'd you
So
who'd you tick off, man?
I don't know, man.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I know. So it's been a crazy week for me already. My Gmail that I use for my Laser Gods and Bravo Technologies, and how I access Thunder Laser's official YouTube, was through that email. And I think it was a snafu in their API, and they kicked me off automatically. And a human needs to see it, but it takes 72 hours for them to even respond. So I'm trying to get that worked out too, because I can't get on there to post any videos or anything, or answer questions or nothing. Anyway, so that's how my week's gone. How y'all?
I ain't complaining.
Not that bad, but still.
Yeah, no, it's nothing. It's nothing. I work better under pressure anyway. That's what made me like being a firefighter so much. When something was on fire, that's when I was at my best. So I'll get them put out.
We're busy expanding again.
Good. That's a good thing. Are you having trouble finding help?
No, I actually got 3 now.
Are you having trouble finding good help?
No, I actually got some good guys. I got a guy that worked with me before.
Cool.
That couldn't make the travel. He's coming back, and another new guy. But yeah,
Okay.
we were working out of like a 600 square foot little office space here in the warehouse, and I just had blown insulation put in, air conditions going out there and everything. So they're going to be working out in the 1,600 square foot part of the warehouse. So
Nice.
we should be able to get things back on track real quick.
Awesome.
Speaking of, the biggest thing is rubber of any kind, silicone, anything. Trying to get O-rings is what we're bottlenecked right now, and I'm jumping through hoops trying to get them from wherever I can to keep things going with mainly with the junior and the roto bosses. The low rollers are going out because we got plenty of O-rings for that, for the wheels.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's been a headache.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, you'll get through it. That's dealing with everything, cameras and everything. Anything we get, it's hard now to be getting that stuff through. Talking about cameras.
There's no supply chain issues though.
Yeah. It could be reverberations from it. I mean,
well, the issue, like for mine is the actual raw materials. is the issue right now. Because a lot of I mean, I deal with like 4 different companies, and each one of them, they're only allotted so much per quarter or per month or whatever. So they got to
ration
divvy
it
it up
out.
between. Yeah, they got to ration it out, and unfortunately, O-rings is like on the bottom of their totem pole.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, but we're keeping them going as much as we can.
All right. Well, cool. Well, if anybody's got anything, feel free to jump in, especially if you got a question, because that's what we're about. If not, we'll just keep on trolling through here and see how it's going.
Yeah, Brian. Hey, this is Sam. You hear me?
Hey, buddy. I do. How's it going, man?
Perfect. Hey, we're good. Got the laser last week. You guys saw that. Finally plugged it in yesterday and farted around with it. Made a quick little design. But the thing that I'm noticing is I have the new Inline Fan, the little white slim body one, not the one that looks like it came from the Korean War.
Right.
And it's really nice. I like it. However, when I'm either I'll call it rastering or cutting, the fan doesn't kick on until there's a bunch of smoke in the bed, and so much smoke that it actually billows out the little top panel right underneath the hood. It kind of comes out the front, and then the fan comes on, and all the smoke goes away. But is there a way to write in the language to get the fan to come on sooner?
No, but what you're seeing may be the fan needing time to spool up, because the way the system works is as soon as the job initiates and that red light goes, it goes from green to red on the light stalk. That's when the fan kicks on. But those inline axials take a lot longer to spool up. Even the cloud lines do. They take longer than the centrifugal fans to spool. So at the beginning, it seems like there's a delay, even though the circuit is energized. You see what I mean? There's no way. Now, what you can do is leave your door open and send the job, and then everything will kick on, and give your fan a minute to kick on, then close the door and hit continue, is the way most people deal with that, or a lot of people do. But if you're getting that much smoke, first of all, what machine do you have?
The 35-100 watt.
So it's got the 6-inch fan, which okay. So, and it's on the low end of the spectrum as far as CFM goes, but it still should be sufficient. Are you worried about inlet air, or are you in a small enclosure that may be tightly insulated and stuff like that, where you may have a restricted inlet where you're not getting the airflow in, so that it can, it may be restricting the flow out?
No, it's not an inflow air restrict. It's electricity is not going to the fan, because once the smoke comes up and then the fan goes on, I mean, I can hear the fan. I'm 2 feet away from it. And so I know that when it's not going, it's not going. And then all of a sudden, when it does kick on, it'll come on probably about 10 seconds, maybe a little bit more or less, whatever. But it takes a second for it to come on, and then all the smoke will go away, and then it stays on for 5-10 seconds after the job is done, and then it'll turn off by itself. So I don't think it's definitely not a pressure thing of the house being too airtight or whatever. No.
So
hey, Brian,
I think you'll find, hang on just one second. I think you'll find, I'm pulling this up. Have you tested it with the TL timer, or watched the indicators on the TL timer when you start a job? If you see number 3 come on, which is that one, as soon as you start the job, then the circuit is being energized as soon as the job thing. So the first thing I want to do is make sure we don't have an electrical problem, because you're saying that that circuit's not energized at the proper time. And I want to confirm that. So you can test by doing that. Let me link this article, and I'll put it in the chat.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know how to do that either. I don't know how to find those, especially after we hang up, because these things aren't posted up there very fast. I know it's up here.
Well, if you'll click that link that I just posted in the chat, or go to have you created a service ticket?
No, I thought I'd check here and see what you guys all said
Gotcha.
before I got all official and stuff.
Okay. So all you'll want to do is open up the right side door, and that TL timer board will be staring you right in the face. And go to start a job, and you'll see some LEDs come on here. This is channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And right here, it tells what each one of those does. You can cycle through and test each peripheral separately, or you can just watch the LEDs on the TL timer as the machine is running. And if this light right here that shows on, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
If that's on as soon as you press start on the machine, or as soon as the machine comes on, then that's the signal that tells the exhaust power to kick on. So that would indicate that the machine is telling the fan to come on at that time.
Okay.
You see, and if it's not, there's also a relay, and I think I might have, it might be in that article. Let's see. It might be. Let me go back to
now
it.
You know why I wanted to wait to do anything until I got on here today.
Sure. Well, actually, if you had emailed us, we could have sent you this article and sent you a few pieces of instructions. You'd probably already have it solved. But that's
actually,
fine.
I think if you read your emails from last night, I emailed something about the fan, I think, for backup topics in case we didn't catch anything. I emailed last night through the link.
Oh, that backup topic thing. To be honest with you, that thing gives me a notification once a week. It doesn't let me know every time there's a new entry, because I don't think anybody else has ever used it.
Well, I'm not breaking guts. I'm just letting you know I tried, whatever. It's all good, dude. We're working on it, so
sure.
I'm good.
Okay, so yeah, if you would just email support@thunderlaserusa.com, and we'll walk you right through it, and we'll get you, verify that the machine is all correct, and then we can address the issue with the smoke as well. So.
Okay. All right. Cool. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, y'all, we can still hammer it out here. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just saying the easiest way is just to shoot us a message, and then we can provide y'all the information and get on a remote session if we need to, and things like that. Either way. What were you going to say, Jason?
Does anybody else have that inline white fan too, or no?
Yeah, I got it on mine on a 24. It does the same thing when I'm using the fan. It's just that momentary delay from when it starts to where the fan spools up, because it's not an instant power to the fan. It takes about 10 seconds, 15 seconds to spool up. So that initial burst of smoke that you're getting out of there is normal. It's not preferred by any means, but with that TL timer, I don't know. And I was going to ask Brian if anybody had actually bypassed that and put in a switch to turn the fan on instead of using the TL, just wire it straight to a switch to hit the relay.
We figured out, Mark Lazar's figured out a little simple procedure to add a switch to work in conjunction with the timer, so you can manually turn the fan on if you want, but you don't actually have to disable any of the systems that are already on the machine.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You piggyback off of it, and you just put like a Zener diode in there or something, so you don't get backflow.
That. We don't even need that.
Okay.
No, all you need is a momentary switch or a on-off switch, just a single pulse, single throw.
And then just wire it in parallel with the TL timer.
No, it goes on a couple of different places on that board. It's already got inputs for that. So yeah, I haven't written the article on it yet because I want to test it myself. But it's really simple to do.
Okay.
So
yeah, if you get that, that'd be an awesome. Easy upgrade to do.
Yeah. Now that's not to say that, Sam, that you're not having, smoke issues too. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to dismiss any of that. I still would like to go through that whole flow with you in a ticket. So we make sure that we eliminate, any variables that we can and mitigate whatever you got going on.
Okay, that's fine. I just didn't know if there was like an easy code right to say, instead of delay 10 seconds, delay 2 or 3, something like that. That's all.
Well, there's technically no way to delay it. That's what I'm trying to. Well, see, that's what I'm trying to explain to you. The fan kicks on as soon as you initiate the job. There is no wait. There's no timer on the power on when it comes on. The only time that it can have, the TL timer sets it to stay on for however many seconds, 15 or 20, when the job is done. It can do that, but there's no way that the electronics in the system can trigger the laser, because the laser doesn't know it's being triggered until Lightburn tells it to go, or something tells it to go. So there would have to be actually a relay timer. It'd have to be able to foresee the future in any normal thing without redoing the whole thing.
So what I've done in the past, I've got the cloud line on my 151, on my 130/51, right? And what I've done is just, you can go in and take on like your frame, your tool layer, right? And you can effectively go draw a circle or a rectangle and see how long it takes to do that. Set that as your first layer and then run your project. So when it starts, you're effectively delaying your laser actually cutting or doing anything, right? So it allows the fan to spool up, because what he's saying, Sam, is the limitation is not in the laser. The fan, when you power it on, does not instantly exhaust the air. It takes time for it to run up to rated speed before it actually pulls the air out. So you actually need to delay creating the smoke until the fan can get to speed. Right? And you can do that in Lightburn just by creating an arbitrary graphic that you're not actually burning, right? So, and I've done that.
You're doing that graphic inside the original. That way, it doesn't throw off your alignments or anything.
Yeah. And
but I can tell you,
I just do it manually.
Not for nothing, but my workaround is I've gotten into the habit of I hit start and immediately hit pause. Okay. And I give the fan about 15 seconds or so to wind up, and then I hit pause again, and the job starts up right way it's supposed to. It doesn't affect your origin, and it works for me. I mean, I don't know if it's the best solution, but that's how I've.
The only time that would affect anything is like as far as anything that the rotary would be an issue with that, probably, because the immediate start and stop might throw things off on the rotary depending on the speed of your acceleration. But on
right, although I'm not sure that rotary is really a smoke intensive, not certainly not like cutting wood or anything else that that makes smoke or smells.
And having the door open when you send the job kind of effectively does the same thing that Arthur's doing. He's just manually interrupting his instead of leaving the door open. But if you leave the door open and send the job over, it'll give you a little warning, that it can't, whatever, and you can close the lid and just continue. And it effectively does the same thing. As long as the lid's open, the fan is still having power. And then when you're ready, when it spools up, then you can either close the lid and hit start, or do like Arthur does and just hit the button and go. But yeah, any of those methods. Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't get my machine yet, but my curiosity on this fan, because I read it on Facebook as well, I think. Can't you just simply hook the fan up to a switch and turn it on manually? I have a Glowforge now.
That's what I do. I've got the Infinity Fan, and I just plugged it into the wall, and I've got the controller right by my laser. So when I turn the laser on, I just turn my fan on, leave my fan on.
If you got aftermarket.
Yeah, I've got a Glowforge now, and I have the Affinity Fan with the switch, and I turn that on before I actually even press the button on the Glowforge to even start the operation.
Yeah, and that's pretty standard, and that's what everybody with the cloud lines does, or a lot of people, is just use the controller and turn on first. Now, here's the caveat to that. The peripherals that come with the Thunder lasers don't have standard 15 amp out plugs on them, so you can't just plug them in the wall. They have to be plugged into the machine because they're controlled by the machine. So to do that, you would have to adapt it and put it, so that it would go to 110. To a standard plug, and those are easy. You can get a pack of those on Amazon Prime, at your door at 8 in the for $10.
Okay, the little adapters. I didn't get my machine yet. I just actually contacted Thunder this morning, and I got Aubrey, I believe her name is. She said that she actually got shipping information, and it just went into transit today or yesterday. So hopefully next week. But
gotcha.
Yeah, I don't know what the connection is yet, because I haven't seen. I didn't realize you actually have to plug it into the back of the.
Right on the. I don't know if I have a good image of it. I was trying to find, but I don't have a good picture of the back of those. I have to search for it. I don't want to waste time. It's basically just a C14 and C13 connector. It's it looks like a computer cord. you know, that you'd see typical maybe on the back of a monitor or something like that. It's but they're keyed that way so that you have to plug them into the machine since the machine controls them. You know.
Okay, but if you do not plug it in that way, and you just simply replace the cord with a 110 cord,
right,
and plug it into and then hook that up to a switch.
Sure.
That doesn't affect anything, correct?
Correct. That won't affect anything. You just won't have the laser controlling the exhaust at all at that point. And then of course, yeah, and a lot of people run it that way. If you want to maintain the autonomous function, yeah, see Jim's he's got a little remote switch or something.
I see it.
But
no, it's the back of the laser. It's
the back of the laser. Oh, I see it. Man, that's tiny. I need to make my screen bigger. Hang on. But yeah, so they're not really proprietary connectors. They just make them a little different, so you can't plug your heater in the back of the machine or your air compressor. You see what I mean? Because those ports can only handle about 10 amps a piece on the relays. So that's why they're keyed not standard. That way you can't plug the wrong thing into the wrong thing.
Because that fan isn't drawing a lot of amps anyway.
No, it doesn't. It draws very little, especially as compared to those cap start, you know, centrifugal fans that are common in a lot of these that we used to put out. So
cool.
What is the voltage on the triggers for the fan and everything? Is it low voltage or?
The coils on the relays are 24 volt. So there's 3 power supplies in the Thunders. There's a 24 volt power supply that handles most of the DSP and the HMI and the controller, the lights, most of the electronics and that kind of thing. The motors are on a totally separate power supply so that they don't get pulled down. You know, a lot of the lasers run one power supply, 24 volt, for all of their everything. And we have a separate one, and it's a 36 volt on the motors because we want a little bit more voltage on the motors.
Right.
And then there's the high voltage power supply. But everything low, you know, logic level or low voltage that's happening with the relays and all the peripherals is all going to be a 24 volt trigger.
I'm just wondering if I deal with AV, and they have sequencers where, you know, you turn the power amp on first, or it goes off first when you shut it down, so you don't have popping in the speakers, and you know, not so much anymore because everything's solid state. But I'm wondering if some kind of sequencer where you turn the fan on and then the laser kicks on, you know, the job kicks on, if that's a relay too, you know, in a sequence. So the fan turns on for say 10 seconds. You could set the delays, and then the next item up for bids turns on, you know, like in a AV situation, you know, have the amp turn on, the peripherals like wireless mics, stuff like that. Then you'll have, you know, other things turn on, DVD players, stuff like that, you know, in the rack.
Trying to integrate something like that into this system would probably be
blow it up.
Yeah, because the TL timer controls the relays, and so if you go triggering things with an external sequencer, which is what the TL timer kind of actually is, it will. It can, I don't know, that could probably, I think that's overthinking the problem, because you can put a simple switch in on the equipment that's already here and just kick the fan on with a push of a button.
So you're on your own type of thing if you want to try it.
Yeah, if you want to. We got full diagrams and schematics. You're welcome to get in there and dig around. Just don't blow anything up.
Right.
Is it even a problem though? Because I mean, how much smoke is getting produced in that 10 seconds? That's going to be an issue. If you're doing your daily maintenance like you should on your lenses and your mirrors, that 10 seconds of smoke every time you start up is not going to be an issue. I guarantee it.
Yeah, and he may have a situation, going back to Sam, he may have a situation where I don't think it's going to be electrical, but if it is, we can resolve that. But there may be something going on with that fan. I don't want to dismiss it. Yeah, but an excessive
situation. I'm just saying, normally it's not really a problem.
For most, this is not something that we get. It is atypical. It is, and usually there is something behind it. Now, I've also seen where maybe you're out of focus, or you have a 4-inch lens in your 2-inch thing, and your kerf, you're burning twice as much material, creating twice as much smoke, and it looks different. You're like, wow, it's making a whole lot more smoke than it used to, and it has to do with focus and how much material you're actually burning. So, but yeah, absolutely. Typically, it's not enough to be a problem. And I don't know, because I haven't seen the new Nova 35 fans, those inlines, work myself. I've got the centrifugal, and well, I've got a cloud light on it now, but it came with centrifugal. So I haven't had one of those in my hand and actually seen how they evacuate, so I'm kind of flying blind on these new fans until I see a few of them. So I'm just going off specs. So.
Hey,
But
Brian,
we'll get
I've
you
got
figured
a
out.
quick question when you get a chance.
Absolutely, man.
So we got the 51-130, and thanks the other day for our ignorance and putting the line offset in the wrong column. We appreciate that easy fix.
Oh, no worries, man. That happens. That stuff happens to me all the time.
So we finally got it hooked up. We're playing with it. We're proficient with Lightburn.
Okay.
Well, she is. I build furniture. She runs the lasers.
Okay.
Question, no reference. We're used to just clicking start from Lightburn to send it to our other laser. And the issue we're running into with it's not, when we do that, it's not using the high air to cut. It's still sending it to low. So I guess the fix for that is just to send it and then hit start, or hit go, or whatever it is on the machine.
Yeah, you
ShiftSend.
Yeah, the ShiftSend is faster, better, and it emulates the start. But yeah, there are some sequencing issues with that. But using send or shift plus send is the answer. Like Jeremy said, if you hold down shift when you hit send, then it's autonomous. You'll still have the dialogues come up. The file.
Does the shift send? I run everything on a Mac. So does shift send work on a Mac as well as a Windows-based computer?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll behave like the start button, meaning the machine will autonomously come on. You won't have to interact with the control panel, but it's still sending the entire file over to the controller's memory in one chunk, which is what we want to eliminate those COM issues and transfer failures and things.
Yep.
Now,
couple of things that I do there, right? So the start command, right? So I actually go into the settings. I think it's in the device settings. You can disable the start command, so that button just disappears, so you don't get into the habit of clicking it. And then on the Mac, I believe it's actually Alt Shift Send. I'm just looking on my Mac right now. If you hover over it, it should say Alt plus Shift plus S, and that'll send the current design as the named file, which it sends the full file to the laser and then runs it rather than just streaming it from the machine.
Okay.
Now, once it's sent to the control panel, and if I'm working off the control panel, we noticed today it acts more like a CNC than it does anything else we've worked with, where you reposition the head and hit go, or again, whatever the button is.
After we've sent it.
And it reverts back to the last place it cut. Is that you have to force the control or the origin button to lock that in place where you want it?
If you're using user what's it called?
Current position.
User origin. Yeah, user origin. Then you have to tell the laser every single time where you want that origin to be. So you'll manually jog, get the red dot where you want it, and press the origin button.
We're always set on current position.
Okay, and then you also need to define your job origin in Lightburn using the radio buttons so that your green box is in the right area so that you're defining your start point in your artwork. If you want, we could sign up and do a quick session and kind of go through it if you want to check it out, because and Jeremy may have a more practical explanation of how that works, because sometimes I get a little convoluted. But on user origin, once you define that and send it, then you should just be able to move your head wherever you need it to be, where your start position is, and hit the origin button is the trick there to tell the and it'll maintain that origin until you move it somewhere else, and then hit the origin button again. Is the way it's supposed to work.
Okay, so it acts just like my CNC then. You have to physically tell it where it needs to start when you're on the control panel.
If you're using
by hitting origin, hitting origin on the actual laser control panel will set it to wherever. So you could set it to the far left one time and the far right the next. As long as you hit the user origin, that's where it's going to start from. Or if you use current position, it'll take off from wherever you have the head parked.
Have you gotten that to work on the Thunder?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. I haven't ever tried it.
Yeah, I use current position on everything, but I've also gotten in the habit, because I have different machines and some machines don't. I get in the habit of hitting user or origin anyways before I start a job, just to ensure that it's going to actually start there. But if you use absolute coordinates, user origin or hitting the origin button is not going to do much for you.
Yeah,
because it's based off of the grid on the bed itself, not
all right.
selected position.
Yeah, it's calculated. And if you use the camera, it will force you, if you have it and you update the overlay or turn the camera on and off, and there's one other condition where it'll do it. I forget what it is offhand. It'll revert you to absolute coordinates. You may not even notice, because when you're using the camera, it's required that you use absolute coordinates. So if you have your camera on and you're not using it, it can throw that off.
And just a FYI too, if you're using a rotary, you can't use the camera.
Yeah, you should always use
because it'll automatically put it to absolute coordinates, like Brian said, and you can't use absolute coordinates on a rotary.
Yeah, and the camera wouldn't be accurate anyway unless you get the top of that cup at the focal plane of the camera. You know, that's why it's important to use autofocus in conjuntion with the camera.
Yeah, because you're up off the bed where it's normally.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't autofocus a cup in the rotary, or you shouldn't. That probably wouldn't work out too good.
Speaking of autofocus,
I used to do it, but it's so hard to get in between those sensors without getting it just off.
Yeah. What's that?
The autofocus. What's the finished material that it will adjust? We were cutting, I don't know, fairly thin foam for boxes today, and I had to work around the autofocus because it wouldn't bring it up high enough.
Gotcha. So that autofocus, being an invisible beam of light, just like a laser, or not just like a laser beam, but similar, it does some wonky stuff. I'm sorry?
It's a passive infrared device, right?
Yeah. Well, kind of, yeah. It's a single thing. So I've seen certain coatings throw it off. Of course, acrylic, if it's anything translucent or transparent, you know, it can actually see through it. If anything has a bow in it, you know, or it's cupped, it can see underneath it. So there's some caveats to using it, because it can be finicky, but it's one of the best autofocus systems I've ever seen on any laser, because even on Epilogue and ULS, the first thing those old school guys will tell you is rip off the autofocus, tear it off, and never use it. And
right, but Brian, I think what he's asking though is because I know, like on some of the really thin material, you try to autofocus, it's only going to go so high. You can't autofocus to some materials because it reaches the limit of the bed height, and you're still not in focus. So you have to still drop it down. Like if you're doing paper, you have to do that.
Well, the problem, you're right, and so the thing about that is you're right. The autofocus sensor is also the Z minimum end stop, so it's the physical stop where the laser won't go anymore, so it'll prevent a head crash. But the theory behind that works. But if you think about it, if you have your bed and you have even a piece of paper sitting on it, it's gonna be the height of the bed plus that piece of paper, so there's no reason it shouldn't go high enough. If it will go high enough to see itself, it should be able to move high enough to see the paper. That said, it may not be accurate on thin stuff. It can see at the bottom and the top of it. You never know what's going on. If it's anything thinner than 1/8 of an inch, I just focus right to the bed and then throw the material down, and then I'm done with it.
Oh yeah, and clear acrylic. Just FYI, then acrylic doesn't get, clear acrylic doesn't get picked up very well by those sensors.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Don't worry, the head will get it.
I won't tell you how I know that.
Sharpie, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Color the edge with a Sharpie if you want to use it.
What I do is I take masking tape, the regular masking tape, and I'll line the edges with it so it gives it contrast to pick it up. Yeah. Or I'll just focus it manually and drop the head down on my 6mm wedge I got.
So, but yeah, I mean, practically speaking, if it's that thin, I just focus to the bed, either that or manually focus. But if it's something, you know, 1/8 of an inch or thinner, most times I'll run the bed up as high as it'll go and just throw the material down afterwards. It's close enough, you know.
Since we're talking about the autofocus, I don't know if you could bring this up with Thunder or even if it's worth it, but because I got a 63 coming.
Yeah, and you talking about being
sensors,
in the back?
Yeah, having them sensors in the back, or why?
Because they're also the Z-Min end stop. If they're up there where you're working all the time, every time your material crosses it, your bed's going to quit moving. It's going to interrupt the laser.
So in reference to that,
So what are you talking about?
She can't
talking about Z.
Huh?
Well, that's the thing too. Is like, why can't they have like a dual, like a some in the back, some in the front? I mean, I get what you're saying. You optimally, I guess, you'd go and autofocus it back there, and then bring your material forward if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, that's the workfall. That's the way everybody does it. They just focus and then move the material where they want.
But looking at a 63, like I said, I haven't gotten mine yet. But I mean, I imagine it's in the back. It's way back there. So I mean, you gotta. I mean, I don't know personally yet, but I'm assuming if it's like the 24, it's about on the back third of the laser.
It'll be in the back third. Yeah, it's about 2/3 back.
So I mean, if that's the case, I mean, you got to reach all the way back in there to do it, and that just, I mean, to me, it seems counterproductive. Yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying as how it should work as far as the stops and everything.
If you put it anywhere else on the bed where you're normally working, it's constantly going to get interrupted, and it's gonna stop what you're doing. You see what I mean? They tuck it kind of back out.
But if you're autofocusing to work from that position, why would it matter where the autofocus is at? Because that's the maximum height you want to be anyway.
It's not, because that sensor's not just autofocus. It's the Z minimum end stop. It's one of the limit switches for the bed, so it has to remain active. If it was only an autofocus, we could put it anywhere we wanted. But if
so that's active all the time.
All the time, even though you don't autofocus in real time, that sensor is always active.
Oh, okay.
So it's just like saying putting a mechanical.
Well, I mean, you can have that one as an active in the back, and then have an actual autofocus sensor more towards the front. Same setup, but just on a separate circuit, like a normal autofocus would be.
You might have a better chance of getting China to fix it than me. So I don't know.
I'll talk to Amy, but no, I just figured that.
They say. Well, I got to be honest, you know, because they constantly look at these things. And I know other people, lots of people have said that. Why are those in the back, and why can't they be up here? If they could change it, I think they already would have. To be real honest,
I mean, it makes sense to you put it that way. It makes perfect sense. But like I said, on the flip side, to have another set up front just for autofocus would be.
Yeah.
I just think it would be more practical that way.
It may be, and I don't run my laser enough, you know, and try to output stuff that would matter to me. I just kind of piddle, so I don't mind reaching back there and throwing it, but I can understand how that can be an obstacle and add up over time. And the other, I'll tell you a cool trick that I didn't ever think about. I think Adam did it. I got to remember, it's been a while. He had a 3D printer, and he just printed some like 4x4 squares, you know, like feeler gauges. And he made one 1/8 inch, he made one 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, you know, whatever. And he just throws those down and autofocuses with those on whatever material he's going to use, you know. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Speaking of autofocus, I just want to put this out there: don't autofocus with a 4-inch lens on your machine.
Yeah, or the high res. That's only for the 2-inch.
Yeah, that too. I have a big old hole in my honeycomb bed because I was stupid and did that.
Yeah. That's the same thing I did when I drug mine through there, and I still haven't had to align that thing. I'm so
I
proud.
haven't either. Mine did it, and then I hit the E-stop, just being a dummy. I hit the E-stop, and there was no way to get it off the head. So I had to go in, turn it on real quick, hit pause or hit escape to stop it or something. I did something, but it drug through about 3 inches of the honeycomb bed before it actually stopped. And like you said, I hadn't had to realign anything. It works just fine.
Yeah, so. Guess what? We have an article on that.
Well, at least you guys only did it with your head, right? I had the 2-inch head, but I was engraving down into like a tray with raised sides. and didn't set the user origin. So I run it over there, got it all ready, and then when it returned home at the end of the job after engraving for 25 minutes, it drug the customer's project through the bed. So so I messed up the project and the bed.
I've done that before too.
If you haven't done that, you're not a real laser engraver.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, you're gonna screw up. It's just not a matter of if, it's when, and how many times.
Honeycomb bed that I don't show on video because it's pretty mangled.
See, that's another reason why I don't use a honeycomb bed for really anything. I use the knife blades for probably 95% of what I do, just because it's easier. And if something like that happens, you don't have to worry about the head going through it. You know, you got more liberty to fix a screw up like that if you do mess up. And plus, with the honeycomb, as most of you probably already know, if you're cutting out on honeycomb, you're going to get flash burn on the back of your material unless you space it away or something. And that's what the knife blades are for, is to prevent that. But and to let material drop to the bottom out of the way, so it doesn't have a chance of popping up or hitting the head or whatever.
Yep. Just wait till you take that honeycomb bed out of that 63 one time. Just say, wherever you put it, that's the way it's going to stay, because it's not fun to take it in and out on the 50.
I'm gonna take it out and put it back behind my warehouse. Just leave it.
And just leave it.
So if anybody needs one, let me know. I'll probably never use it.
Hey, Travis. How's it going? Hey, and as far as that flashback goes, with all that, so there's a really easy. Hold on a sec. Let me switch.
Now, I've heard a couple. I've never tried it, but I know some people that they'll spray like a matte spray paint on it to basically keep the reflection from popping off of it. I mean, obviously it's going to burn it off, but I've been told that it does a lot better in preventing that flash burn.
You could coat it in Ceremark.
No, the way that I have it, or the way that I do it, and this is so stupid simple, but it works, is whatever you're cutting in wood, you put a piece of paper under it, and the flashback hits the paper, not the wood.
That's a pretty good idea. You don't ever have it.
But it works great.
And but you catch the paper on fire. And
that's what I was gonna say. If you catch the paper on fire, then you got a big old flash burn.
Well, if you catch the paper on fire, you're pushing too much power through your laser to cut that wood, anyways.
Yeah, true.
With the Glowforge, you got to mask everything anyway. So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, masking.
Flashback because you peel it off, but.
Steve, you're gonna love the thunder.
Looking forward.
The masking, I mean, if you're working with raw materials, the masking is really unnecessary, because all you need is just a light sanding afterwards, and it takes it right off, if anything. Or if you have most of the time, if I'm doing like plaques or anything like that, that's going to have a finish on it, I'll actually finish the wood first, then engrave it. That way, any residue that gets on the material literally just wipes off with some like mineral spirits or something, and then you put a final coat on it and you're done. Because the masking can be a real pain in the butt.
This was a little off topic. Was that a turkey?
Yeah.
Did you hear that noise?
That's my phone.
Yeah.
It sounded like a turkey gobbling.
It is.
Like a call. It sounded like
you call yourself Blue Moose and you have a turkey on your phone instead of a moose call.
No, that's Jim's phone.
Oh, Jim. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, where he's at, I guess that's pretty normal.
That's fitting. The turkey.
When I get a text message, that's what goes off. You got to be out in the. Buddy of mine, when I was out in the woods hunting, and that thing went off, and his head was spinning around trying to find a stinking turkey. He didn't know I had my phone in my back pocket.
You're lucky you didn't Dick Cheney you.
So I'm not crazy. Well, I mean, I might be crazy, but I wasn't crazy that I heard that, right? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. That just caught me off guard.
Leave it to me.
Yep. So anyways, but yeah, with going back to the masking thing, the reason I came up with the paper idea is I used to mask everything off because a lot of my wood, I'll pre-stain the full sheets before it goes on the laser. And it was just, you can't sand it once it's stained because it mars the stain and everything else. And so I was having to mask everything, but making little wood earrings, trying to peel the masking off on a production level really sucks. And so then one day I'm like, I wonder. So I just took a piece. We use these big pieces of newsprint that are blank. And so I threw it on the laser bed, threw a piece of wood on top of it, cut it out. I'm like, this is awesome. Why didn't I do this before? So, but yeah, it works really well.
Is that like a heavy stock, or is that just like a light wrapping paper, newspaper
it's just
type
really
material?
light stuff. It's the same stuff that the newspaper companies use. So they come in bundles of 35 pounds, I think, and they're about $40 a bundle.
I got rolls of it that I use for sublimation.
Yep.
It'd probably be just as good.
Yeah, pretty much same thing.
So
Brian, how you liking Lightburn Galvo?
Dude,
probably got brought into the. Did you get brought in yet, Travis?
Did you?
Oh yeah, I made it.
Yeah. Did you try the 3D split thing yet, where it sequences the grayscale depth maps?
I did. I'm still trying to figure it out completely though, but for the most part, it's doing really well. I've just got to get my settings dialed in a little more.
Yep.
Did you?
I was going deep in
auto rotate.
Yeah, I was doing deep engraving on coins.
Yeah. So Lightburn makes me want to do pictures again. So I'm gonna carry that over to the CO2 world too.
Yeah. Lightburn on a fiber is gold.
Oh my gosh,
I mean,
it is so.
I haven't used a better. I mean, EasyCAD. I mean, I honestly after using Lightburn, I don't even know how we managed to use EasyCAD because I mean it's
so bad.
I mean it's so easy to set up and use, and the hatching is just set like I do a lot of mine for the rotaries. I engrave everything with the fiber. Well, with EasyCAD, you have to get your hatch angles just right to get it to catch all the little corners and everything of what you're engraving. Whereas with Lightburn, it does a 0 and a 90 as a crosshatch, and that's it. And it covers every little nook and cranny of the design. I've used several different designs, especially like the Thunder design with the star and the D.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always have issues with it missing the inner parts of the star because you'd have to get the hatch just right.
Mm-hmm.
So the detail on Lightburn is miles as far as like the I mean I don't know what you call it, but I guess how
it's
it
like
picks
the hatch
up the
accuracy.
Yeah, the accuracy is phenomenal. Like I said, I mean just the smallest details it picks up and it hits without a problem.
But I want to get back into
crazy.
that too. But let me revisit something real quick. Sam, if you still want to put in a ticket, I'd love to keep going on that and make sure that you don't have something going on. And Lois, also, if y'all are still having anything, please email support and we'll be glad to help you through anything, whatever you guys need. So
we do have one more question. So I'm wanting to get into doing some inlay. Do you happen to know what the kerf offset is for the 51-130, or is that just we get to figure that out?
You'll have to figure that out. It's not like a CNC as there's no finite value there, because as you focus, the beam size changes. There can be a little bit of taper and that kind of thing. The good news is you can just, there's a couple of tools you can use. O2 Creative is a website, and we can link to that. There's some articles, I think, in the system. And if you want to shoot an email, I'll send you the information about how to, a little bit more about using the kerf offset and how to test for it. But it'll be pretty similar if you're used to the CNC world, other than the material and the speed and the power and the focus and all of that make a difference on the kerf. Air assist and the whole bit.
We have another a 70-watt laser. It's just tiny by comparison. We actually moved them both into the new shop, and they're kind of side by side, and it's really sad over there now.
So I can tell you right off that our recommended line interval typically for the 2-inch head with it properly focused is about 0.08. So I would start, if you just wanted to say, hey, I want to input a kerf offset, I would try about half that.
Okay. because we do some boxes and stuff. And if I can roll over and do everything on the 51 instead of on my smaller machine, that would be a lot better. So we definitely need to know those things with inlays and making boxes.
I know on my 24, I mean, I know it's not the same machine you have, but the curve should be somewhat similar. I usually use a 0.2 millimeter offset.
I'm a 0.1
and that,
on
that
a 35.
What's that?
0.1 on my one.
Okay, I use 0.2. I mean, it works for me. I don't know. I guess the other thing you just have to play around with is do like a circle, like a 1-inch circle. Cut out a 1-inch circle with a 0 kerf. Do it with a 0.1. Do it with a 0.2, and see where your true 1-inch comes out. Or a square would be easier to measure, and to see how it comes out.
Tool that'll do kind of what Jason's saying, except it's already laid out. You can set up your range and see what fits in what, and then you got it.
Yep.
Wasn't there a site out there that's a box generator that has a
box? Yes. Yeah, boxes.py.
Yeah,
Don't get right into it.
But you got to know
O2 Creative. O2 Creative has a curve test.
That's what I'm
built in.
Yeah, that's what's there.
Yeah, but the thing you got to look at too, right, is depending on what and how you're putting it together and how tight you actually want your fit, right? So if you're doing decorative inlays versus box joints, right, it all depends, right? I've built a lot of different boxes and more complex boxes. You know, if you're just building a standard 4-sided, box or tray, you can have a really tight fit. But if you start putting a lot of different like shelves built into like a box or, multiple complex shape, you're going to want it a little bit looser fitting, or else you're going to start breaking stuff when you put it together, right, on some of your joints. So what I've found is if you're doing box joints, right, go cut you a couple of them and find your fit, and know that, hey, I could do it at a 0.1, a 0.09, and a 0.11, right? And every project is going to be slightly different, right? Because you're going to run into different thicknesses on material. You're going to run into slightly different fits too. I've not found that even I do one project with these settings, I could go cut it again, and your focus, everything is slightly subjective, right? You could be a slight bit off on your focus because that area of the board is slightly bowed, and then your curve's going to be different. Your fit's going to be different.
Yeah,
there's another one, maker case
thing. The boxes.py website has a thing where it just cuts. It'll help you cut out a bunch of different things with different kerf offsets.
Yeah, they're kerf tool, and it tells you to put it
together until they fit right.
Yep.
Not only that, but you don't want it so tight that if you're planning on gluing, that you start your joints either. Because you start your joints, you might as well not even bother gluing it.
So I mill everything for her, whether it's domestic hardwoods or exotics, and as long as I can keep the consistency of the thickness, she's the one doing the cut. It just saves me time on the table saw with a dado stack. To be honest with you, if she can cut the 130. And then my production is a little bit faster. We do a lot of gaming accessories. So trying to put boxes together out of exotic woods, it's so much easier if she could just handle that part. And then I'm the one finessing everything with the glue, the chisels, sledgehammer if I need it. You never know.
Well, there's a couple links in the chat right now. The one that I use is the maker case one. And you can actually put in there your dimensions, how thick the material is, open or closed box, and then you can select like a flat joint, finger joint, or T-slot, and you can also adjust how many fingers you have. So that way you can kind of make it decorative or whatever. Because I've made like hatch boxes where they open up. It's like a little jewelry box and things like that. But the biggest thing is making sure you get the right thickness, because they have 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, whatever. But some of the dimensionals that you get from the lumber store might be 3/16 or something like that. It's just shy. It's right in between 1/8 and 1/4. So either way you go, you might be long or you might be a little short.
Yeah, I think everything's
so
pretty much classified as a nominal thickness.
Yep. Well, I know, but I've gotten 1/4 inch that's closer to 3/16 than it is a quarter.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
if they're milling their own lumber, they ain't even have to worry about that. He said he's milling their lumber.
But
exactly. I mill it too with a micrometer.
If you make sure it's good, as you probably know, you want to make sure it's good and dry, because that'll obviously cause issues.
We do all of that. We've got our own kiln. I work with tree companies to mill our own lumber. I get exactly what I want.
Where you located at?
That's good, right? You might be a good asset for some people.
Right outside of Fort Knox in Kentucky.
Okay. But that being said, I have a 51-130. I think that's what you said. I use boxes.py. So the burn tool is very good, right? If you, what I'd say is, anytime you're going to go cut a new material, right? Plan to go cut you one of the little cut and test your fit, right? Because different woods, right, as you'll probably know, different woods will fit together tighter or looser, right? And then other thing is different woods have different amount of expansion and contraction. They'll have different wood movement. So you don't want a wood that moves more with a really tight joint and then it move a bit and you start cracking your finger joints and stuff too.
So one other thing to keep in mind also is depending on what you're inlaying. So we do a lot of inlays with mother of pearl and pua shells. And so what we're able to do is I put on my standard 2-inch lens and I engrave out the area that I'm going to be putting my inlay in, and then don't go all the way through the wood. And then when I go to cut out the mother of pearl, because that stuff's insanely expensive, I'll switch over to my HR lens, which has such a fine dot size on it. I don't even have to worry about a kerf offset, and it will lay in there perfect every time. And it gives me a fraction of a little itty bitty little bit of wiggle room so if there's any imperfections or anything. But yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. And yeah, if you don't have a HR head and you want to get into like mother of pearl or pua shell or any of that kind of stuff, that HR head just slices right through it with hardly any waste. It's great. So you might also consider that.
We've got a buddy wanting us to be able to inlay like mammoth tusk and all kinds of odd stuff. So
yeah, you would just engrave out the tusk or any of that kind of stuff, engrave it out with your standard 2-inch lens, or even consider going to a 2.5-inch lens. That's actually my favorite lens of all, is a 2.5. But yeah, the stock 2-inch lens, engrave it out, and then use an HR lens to actually cut your inlay material out, because that way, I mean, that mother of pearl, my sheets are only this big when I get them in, and they're like $80 for a sheet. So I mean, I want no waste.
Well, we're getting pretty close. I have a couple of fires I probably need to put out, so I might go ahead and hand this thing over if anybody wants to do the after party.
Throw it to Jim.
You just got volunteered, Jim.
Just make that the default.
We don't have the issue that we did last week when Jim and I kept throwing it back and forth, and then we were confused, like, who the hell has it now?
I think next week I'm just going to go ahead and forward it to Jim and just jump back off before it even starts, and I'll just see y'all next Thursday.
just make that the default.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that sounds good. I'm going to go see what I can do about keeping our support system uninterrupted and a few other things and answer some tickets. So,
hey, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah, I just sent you a private message about the door.
Yeah.
Leaving the door open, and the third light is on. It's working, and I guess it does just take a little second for the fan to spool up to full speed, but it clears it out. So it is getting power right away.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you confirmed that, because I wanted to make sure, because every once in a while we'll have a loose connection or something, I wanted to make sure. But yeah, that's one of the drawbacks to those those DC inline axial fans. Even the Cloudline S12 suffers from the same thing. Of course, it moves more air to begin with, so you may not notice it as much. But that time to spool up is a little bit concerning at first. But hopefully that'll help you mitigate it. So.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
and
if it's something,
Jason, I'm going to try to find you. I don't do Facebook. My wife does. So we'll try to find you here in a second.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump off here, and you guys have a good one. And I'll put these videos up whenever YouTube lets me have my permission back, I guess. I don't know.
You just get Jim to upload them too.
Well, I might do that. I have a couple more YouTubes that I could use, but I kind of like to keep everything in one